Saw former Alabama offensive coordinator and now Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin on Theo Vaughan. And I thought it was interesting because he was asked about his time with Nick Saban and kind of took some responsibility for the way he acted, causing conflicts behind the scenes. The guy's a genius offensively, and now he's a head coach. And it's interesting kind of just looking back on his tenure at Alabama. And a lot of you guys were hoping that he would be Bama's head coach instead of Kalen DeBoer or anyone else. But we're going to get into that on the show here. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Let's talk a little bit of Alabama football on the Bama Tailgate Show. And also great to have all you guys today. Lane Kiffin, always a fun topic. Roll Tide. Hey everybody, Mick Gillespie, Bama Tailgate Show. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. It's always great to talk to you, and I appreciate everyone for being here today as we talk Alabama football. Well, let me talk this first. We'll get into some other stuff, but let me start here. Lane Kiffin on the Theo Vaughan Show. Theo Vaughan is a YouTube guy. He was on The Real World. He's pretty talented, pretty funny. You've probably seen a lot of the shorts that he's put out. His team does a great job of pushing his content, and he's slowly become one of the biggest YouTube hosts out there, or podcast hosts. I said YouTube, but podcast hosts out there. And he's funny, and I saw him at the Bama game when they were in Nashville losing to Vandy, and he's been on the sideline for some games. I think he's a college football fan. As a matter of fact, Saturday at the 8A game, I drove by and saw him taking a picture out in front of the Wayside, or at least I think that was him, in Tuscaloosa. So anyway, I like Theo Vaughan, and it was interesting with him having Lane Kiffin on as his guest because he started talking about Lane Kiffin as Alabama's OC from 2014 to 2016. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. When covering Alabama, and I did back then, it was very interesting with Lane Kiffin. On one hand, you had this guy who was amazing at calling up plays and getting the most out of an offense, a career that was the most unique career that I've ever seen in professional sports. I mean, his dad was a legendary defensive coordinator who basically came up with his own defense and beat defensive style. And you guys know Monty Kiffin and people, he was like a guy that actually wrote the book on playing a certain style. What was it, the Tampa 2 or whatever? And then you got his son, Lane Kiffin. He's got another son that coaches too, but Lane was like 33 years old. He's like the coach of the Oakland Raiders, the head coach of the Raiders, like Al Davis. And he didn't last very long. I mean, they fired him, I don't know, what was it, like a year into the job? I'm sorry, he was 31 when he got the job. And a year later, he was fired. And he had a 4-12 season. I don't think that a first-year coach at 31 years old going 4-12 is anything. But Al Davis was very angry at Kiffin and couldn't wait to fire him, and then called him a flat-out liar. And he said he brought disgrace to the organization. And I remember it to this day. Like, he actually came out and read a statement, Al Davis, about how rotten Lane Kiffin was, the guy that he'd hired as head coach. So there you go. Like that's Lane Kiffin. So he goes from there, right, to become Tennessee's head coach in 2008. And he's there for a year. They go 7-6. You remember Bama almost lost to them. As a matter of fact, Tennessee in the game we affectionately call Rocky Block, when Terrence Cody blocked the kick at the end of the game, could have won the game. They just got a little bit too they didn't get they had the ball late. They could have scored. They would have won with a field goal. They got a little bit too just honestly just like they didn't want to make any plays. Like they were just kind of just going to sit back and wait. And then the field goal got kicked. And their field goal kicker wasn't kicking field goals anyway. He was missing them. And then, but it showed that the guy could, potentially could do something because that team for Alabama went on to win the national championship. And then he left there and went to USC. That was his dream job. I don't blame him for that. And then at USC, when they fired him at the airport and left him on the tarmac, which is still crazy, right? So Nick Saban rescues him from a failed career, and he comes to Tuscaloosa, and he's like, on one hand, he's like reforming Alabama's offense, which was very conservative, game manager style, to kind of open it up a little bit or a lot bit to be able to contend with college football's rules that were pushing offense. And he did a really good job of that. That was on one hand. And no one works with quarterbacks better than him. Then on the other hand, there were just constant like stories coming out of the facility where people were telling us about just crazy stuff with this guy. Not getting along with coaches, staying out at bars, which he's kind of, I guess, admitted now that he doesn't drink anymore because of that. Probably a good thing. And you could do, and I've said this before, and I'll say it on here as well. If you guys are fans of Dave Chappelle, and I love Dave Chappelle when he did the skit with Charlie Murphy, pretending that he was Rick James. If they did a Lane Kiffin skit like that, there's a lot of content out there. I'm just going to tell you that. so anyway, like, okay, I'm fine with that. Like, that's your business. I mean, and when you're in Tuscaloosa and you're doing that stuff, it's a small town, and you're an offensive coordinator at Alabama. Everybody's watching what you're doing. It's just the way it is. So, okay, that's fine. The thing that bothers me about him, and the thing that to me to this day is unexcusable, is the 2016 season where he was going to stay and coach the offense, and they had to relieve him of his duties after the Washington playoff game. And then Alabama goes down to Clemson, a team that they should have crushed. Steve Sarkisian stepped in as offensive coordinator. It wasn't the same. The continuity wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. It wasn't the same team. It wasn't the same offense. You could tell in the Washington game, after Alabama was just crushing it, that Kiffin's priorities weren't Alabama anymore. His priorities were his new job at Florida International, and that's where he was putting in his time. And that's what I understand, allegedly, why he was relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator. And I think that cost Alabama a national championship. That 2016 team was better than Clemson. I know it was the pick play in the end zone. I was at the game, but it just didn't look right. Bo Scarborough got hurt. If Kiffin would have been there and would have been locked in, they would have won the national championship. So, he says he's got a decent relationship with Nick Saban, that he got a text from him, that he calls him. I'd be surprised if he's on Saban's Christmas list, Christmas card list. I mean, some of that stuff is like, you cost those kids a national championship. And I get it. You got another job and that's where you wanted to go. But it's still to this day the national championship at Alabama that Saban should have got that he did. And I know, look, they won a lot of championships, and there's so much in that legacy. But he was disruptive, and I'm glad that he was on there talking about how it was his fault, because it was his fault. It was totally his fault. He was too immature. And we used to talk about him being a guy that was born on third base but thought he hit a triple. With all that said, he still is, I think, one of the top coaches in college football, and it's definitely worth checking out the interview. Now, the funniest thing he said on there was he said that when he was a coordinator at Alabama, he went to Saban's house for Easter, and that Saban let his 1-year-old find the golden egg. I guess that was like the magic egg in the Easter egg hunt. That was pretty funny. It's a little dig at Saban because Kiffin's kids didn't get that, but I like that. I like his sense of humor, honestly, and I enjoy his banter on social medias. Whether it be Twitter or some of the other stuff, he's interesting guy in that aspect. But we, as media people, we were getting basically tipped off by other coaches on some of the stuff he was up to. And it was just like stuff you couldn't even report. I think that some of those coaches might be watching this show, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I wish him the best, man. I really do. I do wish him the best. It's just a shame because you don't get that many opportunities to be a champion in life. And if he would have been focused in 2016, it's my opinion that Alabama would have easily taken care of Clemson. I think that Clemson team in 2016 wasn't as good as the 2015 team. And I think 2016 Bama was in a lot of ways better, especially defensively. So, there's just, every time I hear him talking about his time at Alabama, it's just, I don't know. It just gets under my skin a little bit. But what do you guys think? I know a lot of you guys wanted to see him back as Alabama's head coach, and had the antics not gone on behind the scenes, he might have been, and he could have possibly been one of the great coaches at Alabama. I mean, he would have, his style of offense, what he's doing at Ole Miss right now, where they really are a team to look at. Like they're definitely up and coming. And last year, it's a shame they didn't make the college football playoff because even with that loss to Florida, they were certainly better than SMU. Certainly better than Arizona State, even though Arizona State had a really fun game against Texas. But anyway, look, that was something that I kind of wanted to get into. You guys know I love that topic of Lane Kiffin. He's such an interesting guy. And I want somebody to do a parody show on his life. Show is brought to you by our friends at Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia, Mississippi. We'll talk more about them in a second. Let me tell you guys this, though. We got a date for a big basketball game. I'm excited about Bama playing at the United Center in Chicago. It'll be the Tide against the Illini. That's going to be awesome. Wednesday, November 19th. Man, that'd be so fun to go to Chicago and check that out. I love Nate Oates for playing these type games, for not being afraid to go out and take on the best of the best. And that's what he's doing here. And this is another one where you look at these teams. I know it's going to be different rosters, but Illinois last year was 23-13, 12-10 in the Big Ten 2 years ago. Remember, they made a run into the Elite Eight. Alabama is now set to play Purdue November 13th, this game in Chicago. And then they're going to play Arizona in Birmingham December 13th. So that'll be a lot of fun. Bama's going to be without a lot of really good players. It's going to be a much different team with Mark Sears and Grant Nelson gone. And then, what was it? LeBron Philon going to the NBA. So interesting, right? But they're going to go out there, man. They're rebuilding the roster. They do that every single year. Bama last year into the Elite Eight again, and they will have a different roster, and we'll see what it looks like. No Mark Sears and no Grant Nelson, kind of the faces of this Bama team. An interesting story about Ty Simpson's dad that was on Bama Online, worth talking about. We may get into that later this weekend, but just knowing that Ty Simpson's kind of the guy now and all the stories. His dad, football coach and basically, helps him break film down and stuff. Why not, right? Think about that. And you know how to study when your dad is a football coach because he does it. You're just to watch him do it. He does it all the time. Listen, guys, I appreciate you being here. A couple things I want to tell you before we get off the show today. First off, that we're brought to you by New Life Art over in Hoover, Vestavia Hills. You know where I'm talking about. But they have the Daniel Moore prints, and I need them here. I need one in here. Maybe I'll bring one up here just to kind of fix this wall over here with one. But I love him. I think he does an amazing job with just all those works of art. But they have other stuff there, calendars and mugs and a bunch of other cool stuff at newlifeart.com. So use our promo code Bama Tailgate and take advantage of it right there. When you get in, say Bama Tailgate at the end, Bama Tailgate, and you get 20% off when you check out. So take advantage of that. And then finally, Pearl River Resort. The Masters was last weekend. And how many of us actually enjoyed the Masters? Watching I think the best of the golf sporting events. Well, Dancing Rabbit Golf Course at Pearl River over in Philadelphia, the Azaleas, the Oaks, it is the Augusta that you can play. It is a multi-million-dollar golf course. It is well kept. You're going to love it. If you golf, you need to get over there. But they also have Silver Star and Gold Moon Casino. You got table games and slots. You got, on top of that, the sports book at the Timeout Sports Lounge, all of that over in Philadelphia. And we encourage you to go over there. Hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 hours and change from Birmingham. But it's that time of year, man. Get the guys together, get the poker club together, take them over there. Maybe a guys weekend, maybe a bachelor or bachelorette party, all that stuff. Great. And it's not that far. And it's a good place. They got it all. Slots, best slots out there. Take advantage. Pearl River Resort. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. And again, roll Tide.
To Pearl River Resort.